Hi guys, today in class we worked on writing equations given a table. So in the past class, the last class that we had, we were given the equation. We had to come up with the table and the graph based off of whatever equation we started with, right? So now we're starting only with a table. Okay, and we are using that table to find the slope and the intercept so that way we're able to write our equation in this format, y equals mx plus b. The parts of an equation are slope and intercept, right? So to find slope from a graph, that is even before last class, right? When we started with a graph and we had to write an equation given a picture, right? Given a picture that had a line already on it, we had to find the slope and we had to find the intercept. Okay, so if you remember, in order to find slope from a graph, we had to get two good points, right? Use two good points to do rise over run, right? So we're going to use our two good points. We're going to draw our rise over run triangle, and then we're going to do we're going to count rise over run. Okay. To find the y-intercept, this is where we look to see where our line touches the y-axis. So we're looking for the line that is graphed. We're seeing when it touches our y-axis. Okay, the formula or the equation that we have been writing is y equals mx plus b. Remember that our slope, we have been circling it. Notice how I circle only the m. So when a number goes in place of m, right, when we substitute that number, excuse me, you only circle the number. You do not circle x, okay? We put a box on the intercept, so we put it on the b and the plus sign, because remember, if it was minus, then that means my intercept would be negative. Before moving on to slide 4, we went to our journal and took some notes. So if you open up your journal, make sure you put today's date, 9/21 if you are an A day or 9/22 if you're a B day. Our title is Table to Equation because we are going to be given a table this time. And our goal is to write an equation. Okay, so if you set up your table, X side and Y side, we don't need to necessarily put it on a graph, but I want to show you how they are all interrelated. Okay, so label your X and your Y axis, your minus and your plus. Okay, so in the problem, when we have a table and we see 0 under my X column, if I locate 0, whatever number is with 0, that is my intercept. So that's why I am calling it B. Okay, so remember, B is just a variable. It holds the place for whatever number can go there, right? So if we see 0 under our X column, the number that is with 0 will be your y-intercept. Okay, remember when we're writing that as a point, that is 0, comma, b, because b can be any number, right? So if I go plot that on my graph, right, y-axis, I'm going to put my b on there. We're going to label that point 0, comma, b. And I went up to the positive side because I didn't put a negative b, right? It's just a regular b, so I'm going to say it's a positive b, somewhere in my positive y. Okay? If you can't find a 0, then we can't find what our b is, right? We're going to use Desmos to help us. And we're going to do an example together. Slide 7. Okay, so now what about slope? That's only my b. That's how I find my y-intercept. If I want to find slope, okay, let's say our table is already filled out for us. Well, it will be filled out, okay? We have to find what we call the change in y and the change in x. So we want to know how it goes from one number to the next, right? So we draw this. That means the change. Same thing on the x side, right? We want to know how it's changing from 0 to 1. We can't find it on the y side because we just have a b. We don't know what number's there yet, right? So we're going to write it in words first. Change in y is on the top over the change in x. Okay? Seeing it in symbols, change in y over the change in x. After we plug that in, work it out, that is our slope, right? So our goal was to write our equation. Once we have our b from the table, or Desmos, right? We figured out what our m was. We can plug those back into our equation and have y equals mx plus b. Okay, so real quick, at your intercept, draw yourself a positive line. Going through your point, facing the positive direction. Give yourself another good point on your line and draw your rise over run triangle. Okay? When we rise, right, we are changing from one point to another point on my y-axis, right? So that is the change in y. When we find our run, we are changing from one point on the x to another point, right? So we're finding the change in x. So if we write that as rise over run, that is your slope, right? We've been finding how many times it goes up, how many times it goes to the right, and vice versa, how many times it goes down and right? We are still finding our slope, okay? So I kind of just wanted you to see how they were all related to each other. Okay, so kind of following along with the notes that we just took, okay, I like to find the b first. Whether I have a table or a graph, I like to use my b as the starting point, okay? So if I look at this table, right, remember I told you if 0 is in the x column, which in this case we do, whatever number is paired with it will be your b. So 5 would be my y-intercept, right? So I'm going to go and label that. Under y-intercept, I'm going to put a 5. Okay? So now to find slope. So I found my b. Now I've got to find slope. I've got to find the m, right? The letter m in my equation. To do that, we have got to do the crocodile mouths, or how it's changing, right? How it's changing from one y to my new y. So if I start at 5 and I'm changing to 10, I know that I have to add 5 to get to the new number, right? So if we do 10 plus 5, we do get 15. So my change in y is plus 5. So I'm going to go fill that in the blank, plus 5. Okay, so now on my x side, my change in x from 0 to 2, I have to add 2, right? So if I added 2 plus 2, I would get 4. So I know that it does work. So plus 2. When I set them up as a fraction, remember, change in y over change in x. That means that I have to put my plus 5 over my plus 2. When we rewrite the slope, we're just rewriting it without the symbols or using whatever symbol I need to combine them to be, right? So I'm going to pick a different color. So my slope is just a positive 5 over 2 since they were both positive, right? I'm going to leave it as a fraction. So if I take my slope and my intercept, my slope was 5 over 2. My intercept was 5. I'm going to go plug them into where they belong in my equation. Remember, the circle is with the letter x. So that means that y is equal to 5 over 2x plus my intercept was 5, so the number 5. Okay, slide 5 and slide 6 are very similar to slide number 4 that we just did. Okay, you work them out the same exact way, right? Finding your b, finding the change in y, the change in x. Be careful when you are plugging them into a fraction. The symbol, the negative and the positive sign does matter, okay? Slide number 7, we are going to wait. I will help you with that one next class period. We are going to learn how to put this into our Desmos calculator, okay? You are responsible for completing slide number 8, 9, and 10. Those are all multiple choice. The y-intercept can be found in the table. So what you really have to focus on is finding the change in y over the change in x.